Hi, welcome to our video here today. I'm Jordan Bradford with Burkholder Wealth Management, and I'm here with Eric Burkholder. And we're going to talk about what makes a good financial advisor. So this is going to be a great video for you if you're wondering what your financial advisor should be doing with you. And we'll give you a couple of quick bullet points on that. So we've got five specific topics today, and I'm sure there's many more things that make a good advisor. But we want to go through five of them today that we think are really important. So, Eric, why don't we just get right into this? Tell us what the first one is.
We're big believers and an advisor should listen more than they talk. And that might seem obvious, but I think a lot of times people have interactions with advisors who are more in sales mode most of the time. That's just kind of the history of the business and unfortunately how financial services have been for a long time. But that is a sign you're working with a salesperson,
right?
And not so much an advisor,
right?
Because if I'm talking, I'm not learning about the client or the prospect situation. And as we know, every situation is a little bit different, and a lot of specifics are different with each client. So if I'm talking to them about what I think is the best investment or product, then I'm not able to understand where they're coming from, what they need.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes, and I don't know who ever coined this, but it's that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I think that's really applicable when it comes to financial advising. It's our job to listen and to really understand, and not to just tell you what we think, because we only know what we know, and we want to get to know you better.
Exactly, and you mentioned there's many different points that we could talk about on what makes a good financial advisor. Now we're picked 5, and I think they're good for people to think through, because a lot of times people only work with one advisor, and they may not know what another advisor works like or what they should expect.
Right.
And I think it's common where people sit in and they say, I don't know, the advisor talked the whole time and told me what we're going to do. Certainly there's some back and forth, but they should definitely be listening more than talking. So that's one. Jordan, what's our next point?
Yeah, well, I think it goes right in hand with the first one, and that's that good advisors are going to ask questions to get to know you and your goals. And I think that's a really important piece, because we all advisors generally know quite a bit about the industry. We know about investments. We have a lot of different areas that may be our personal expertise or our firm's expertise. But the reality is that none of that information is useful unless we know the goals that our clients have for us.
Right.
And in order to get to understand that better, we have to ask a lot of questions. And if your advisor doesn't ask you a whole lot of questions, that might be a good sign that they're building a plan that works best for them, and not necessarily one that works best for you as the client. And that's really the whole purpose of you meeting with an advisor and working with someone.
Yeah, exactly. And think about, when you go to the doctor's office, most of the time you were sitting there and they're asking you questions.
Right.
Especially, if you're a newer patient of theirs. You may sit there for 30 minutes to an hour of just answering questions.
Yeah.
That's because the doctor is not so much concerned about what he's going to, propose to you as a solution, but he really wants to know, he or she wants to know what is the issue, what is the underlying issue that has brought you in, and how can he help?
Exactly.
The flip side is more like the car salesman who, may say, hey, what are you looking for today? And then you give them one piece of information and they take it and fly. And they're like, here's 15 different cars that might work for you. And so you want to err more on the side of asking questions. That's what a true advisor does.
Yeah, I think that's an easy way to start if you're interviewing advisors, or you're not sure if your advisor is doing the right things. Maybe think back on how many questions did they ask? Or if you're, like I said, if you're just getting into the interview process yourself, be on the lookout for that.
Yeah.
They should be asking you a lot of questions. You should be feeling like they're really getting to know you personally before they start making any recommendations at all. Because any recommendation that comes before we know our clients is not a very good recommendation in general. It's just kind of it'd be lucky, I guess, if we were hitting the nail on the head, in the dark that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's another thing that makes a good financial advisor?
So another one I think is important is they know an advisor knows when to say I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Knows when to say I don't know, if that is a mouthful, but ultimately I think the advisor who says that is probably more knowledgeable, because knowing the limits of your knowledge is actually is pretty important, and actually shows that you really understand your craft well. And they're more likely to search out and find the answer. Mm-hmm. Also, it's hard. We're experts in what we do, and there is that urge, that feeling to want to always have an answer. And so I'm not perfect. I've certainly tried to grasp for answers before, but I think you need an advisor who's willing to say, like, I don't know the exact answer to that, but I certainly can find you the answer, because financial planning, investments is so broad, and there's just so many different ways you can do things, and specific tax and investment, and just there's no way you can know it all.
Yeah.
Right. And so being able to have some humility and say, I will find the answer for you, but I don't know right now. That's really a sign of not only an advisor who knows their stuff, but has the humility to find the right answer.
Yeah, I think it's very okay to say I don't know the answer to something, because I don't know the answer to everything. And I would much rather get an exact answer and find out what the real truth is than give just a half-hearted answer in the moment, trying to make you feel like, Jordan knows a lot of information. Jordan can answer my questions all the time, the first time I ask. I'd rather you say, Jordan always researches questions for me. And I think that's what makes a good advisor. One of the things that makes a good advisor is being able to say, I don't know the answer to that right now, but I will write that down. I'll get back to you, and then get that information to the client in a way that's shows that you've done your research, you've looked into their question, and you've dedicated some time and effort into making sure that it's correct.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Okay, who's up? You're me.
Yeah, I think I'm up. Okay. So
tell us the next one, Jordan.
Yeah, well, I think the next one again goes right in with the last one, right? If you don't know something, what you have to do next is you got to find that information and then follow up. Yep. And that's probably one of the biggest ones. And I would say that's a huge red flag if your advisor does not follow up with you. If they tell you they're going to find an answer for you, but you have to follow up with them to get that answer, that's a sign that maybe they're either working with too many clients, their focus isn't on you, and there's a lot of reasons why that could be. But you're not messing around, right? This is your financial life. This is your long-term plan. You want somebody who is going to focus on you, and part of that is just the simple fact of we've got to follow up and do what we say and say what we or say what we mean and then do what we say, because that's where the trust is built. Mm-hmm. Is when we tell you we're going to follow up with you, know that we're going to, even if we don't have an answer yet. Right. You still want to follow up and say, I haven't had a chance to get the answer to your question. I know I told you I'd follow up with you. I'm following up to let you know that I'm still trying to get the right answer. And I think people really appreciate that. I know I appreciate that whenever I'm in a situation dealing with any sort of customer service type issue. As long as I'm getting communicated with regularly and being told, hey, this is the next status update, I feel like I'm being taken care of, even if we haven't really made a whole lot of progress in a time frame that I thought we would have already done.
Right. Exactly.
So I think it's a big deal. I think following up is just a huge component. And you'd be surprised how many people don't do it. Or maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you've had some experience where people haven't followed up with you.
And the number one reason people cite for leaving their advisor is poor communication.
Right.
It's not performance. It's not the plan wasn't done well enough. It's poor communication. Right. And I think there's a spectrum in there as well of where people aren't leaving, but they're probably not getting very good communication. If your advisor's not proactively reaching out to schedule meetings, we've familiar with advisors in the industry, and To your comment of just having too many clients, they're not going to reach out unless you reach out first.
Right.
And I think people get trained to be like, well, this is probably like it is everywhere. And that's not the case. So if your advisor's not touching base with you, at least on an annual basis or trying, that's probably a pretty big red flag, because there is much better service models and advisors out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's the last one that we have on our list today?
Yeah, another a very important topic is continuing education. And that applies to obviously almost every industry and job out there. We used medical doctor example before. I mean, you don't want to be working with the doctor who got board certified 20 years ago and hasn't gone to any continuing education since. That would be pretty alarming. But unfortunately, the advisor industry, that's probably more common, because there's not one standard oversight board or committee that, there are certifications, and that's kind of related. We are big believers in advisors continuing to get education, continue to get certifications and advanced education. Those are all ways to continue to learn, because like any subject matter, like new studies come out, we learn more. There's more technology to use to help us make better decisions. And so your advisor needs to be aware of new studies, new information, and if they're not, they're probably leaving a lot on the table.
Yeah.
The plan's not going to be up to date, and tax laws change, regulatory laws change. I mean, it's just an ever evolving industry, and it's not no subject I would think is really suited to not continuing to educate yourself. But this one certainly, you could be in big trouble if your advisor's not staying up to date on all the latest changes.
Yeah, and I think that this one may be the hardest of the 5 we mentioned to know right out of the gate if your advisor's doing a good job in this area. But it's really simple. Just ask your advisor, hey, what do you do to stay up to date? How do you continue to learn more? Because tax laws change, estate laws change. Everything is always moving. It's a very fluid industry, even if it feels like it isn't. There's always new things to learn, always new techniques in terms of planning and really incorporating that plan and investments and how that all works together. So I think, you should always ask your advisor, just, hey, what's going on? What's new in the industry? Though that's a good question that's pretty simple, and it'll test your advisor a little bit to be able to regurgitate what is some new stuff that I've learned. And I think if you ask those types of questions, and if you look for these particular things with an advisor, I think what you're going to find is that even though the bar is, that seems like a pretty relatively low bar to listen more than you talk, to ask questions, to admit when they don't know something, to follow up and to seek education, that's a really good foundation. And your advisor should be doing all of these things, and they should be making an effort in those areas to show you that they're working for you. And once they've done all of that, then it's really looking into, okay, how intelligent are they on the planning side or the investment side? And are they really the best of the best? Because you can be one of the smartest people in the room, but if you're not doing these 5 things, you're probably not going to be the best planner. And you're certainly not going to be great at working with your clients and making your clients feel like they're important and they matter. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, this is, if you're the client, this is your life. This is your livelihood, your nest egg, your retirement. And unfortunately, this industry is pretty sticky, meaning like advisors have to be really bad before people leave. I think part of it is just a not having awareness of what to expect. So hopefully this kind of gives you some help and kind of, what are the expectations, and if your advisor's not doing these things, it might be time to look elsewhere. Because it isn't a very important role that your advisor serves, and you deserve to demand the highest level of service.
That's absolutely correct. So I think if we could leave you with one message as we finish up this video here, it's if you don't have an advisor but you would like to seek one out, we would be more than happy to talk with you and help put you in the right place and get you a plan that really works for you. And if you have an advisor that you're not really happy with, feel free to reach out to us. Again, we're happy to review what's going on in your current plan, see what kind of holes or gaps may be there, and really get to know you better to see if changing advisors is the right move for you, or maybe it isn't. But ultimately, we want you to know that there are different ways of doing business out there if you haven't had the best experience, and we'd be happy and honored to get that opportunity to earn your business and your trust.
Absolutely. So we'll leave it there. Like we said, we have many more points we could go through, but these are really important. And so if there's any other questions, as always, don't hesitate to ask, and we'll see you all in the next video.
Thanks.